infectious diseases, research, medicine, health. Welcome to Outbreak News Interviews. And now, broadcasting from the Outbreak News Skylar Studios in beautiful West Central Florida, here is your host, microbiologist and editor of OutbreakNewsToday.com, Robert Harriman.
Well, hey everybody, this is Robert, and welcome to Outbreak News Interviews. Now, enteroviruses are the cause of a number of infections, including hand, foot, and mouth disease, the common cold, and most recently a condition called acute flaccid myelitis, or AFM. So what are enteroviruses? What is Enterovirus D68? What do we know about them? And what research is being done? Joining me to answer these questions about enteroviruses is Vincent Racaniello, PhD. Dr. Racaniello is a professor of microbiology and immunology in the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Columbia University, and he's a world-renowned virologist and science educator. Dr. Racaniello, welcome back to the show.
Good to be back, Robert.
All right, well, so enteroviruses are on the radar again due to a larger amount of AFM cases confirmed this year. Dr. Racaniello, what are enteroviruses and how common are they?
Probably everyone knows the most famous enterovirus, which is poliovirus. It's a genus of viruses in a bigger family, and it includes poliovirus, rhinoviruses, Coxsackie viruses, echoviruses, and other enteroviruses. And these are small RNA-containing viruses. They cause a variety of illnesses, and they're incredibly prevalent. There are millions of enterovirus infections every year in the U.S., and most of them go undiagnosed because we can't treat them, so we don't diagnose them. And they can cause respiratory infections. They can cause skin rashes, as you mentioned. They can cause muscle infections, and they can also cause paralysis. They can invade the central nervous system. They can cause paralysis. They can cause brain infections called encephalitis or meningitis. So incredibly prevalent viruses and really causing lots of childhood illnesses these days.
Yeah, and now the infections with enterovirus, they appear to be a seasonal thing. Is that right?
Enteroviruses have historically been seasonal. That's right. So polio, when there were outbreaks of polio in North America, they were typically in the summertime. And many of the enteros do circulate in the summer months. Others are winter pathogens like the rhinoviruses, which are classified along with the enteroviruses. You know, the word entero means intestine, right. But a lot of those enteroviruses, they're classified as enteroviruses, but they actually infect the respiratory tract, and rhinoviruses tend to be winter pathogens as far as we can tell.
Yeah. Now, I'd like to put a little more focus on Enterovirus D68, since that's really what's in the news lately. How does this spread?
So Enterovirus D68 is a respiratory pathogen. It is not like polio. Polio infects your intestine. Entero D68 you acquire from aerosols produced by people coughing or sneezing or even just talking, a little sometimes contamination of material with mucus that contains virus. It enters your upper tract, the nasopharynx, replicates in there, and can cause a common cold-like symptom, which is what I have now. You can hear my voice is a little rough. Yeah. I picked up a common cold over in Europe, which is very typical. And I think it's probably a rhinovirus, but it could be any of a number of either enteros or other viruses. And in some cases, these viruses can spread down into the lungs and cause a more serious respiratory disease. So it's person to person, aerosol, and a little bit of contact as well.
So, Dr. Racaniello, when you see the media frequently use the term polio-like illness, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I don't like it because they're using it to get attention,
sure.
Right? Because polio is almost eradicated, and then all of a sudden a parent sees polio in the headlines again, and they're going to pay attention and read it. It's not polio. So the lesions are distinguishable between polio and other enteroviruses, and I I don't like it because it's not poliovirus.
Yeah.
I would say enterovirus paralysis, but then I'm not a headline writer, so they're not asking me.
Yeah. I felt the same way, like it's clickbait, if nothing else.
Yep.
Okay, so who's most at risk for Enterovirus D68 infection?
The at-risk population is young kids, 6 years and younger. They have never seen the virus before. It seems to be cyclical. Every couple of years, the outbreaks, so you could go a couple of years of life and not encounter it, have no immunity. When you're older, I'm not likely to get it because I've probably been infected multiple times and I'm immune to it. So it's just young kids who are susceptible, mostly. Yeah.
Well, this year the CDC has reported an increase in the condition called AFM, acute flaccid myelitis, and that's really defined as a sudden onset of paralysis or weakness in any part of the body in a child. Hence the so what do we know about Enterovirus D68, Dr. Racaniello, as the causative agent of AFM?
So AFM is a condition that can be caused by many things, not just infectious agents. It can be caused by toxins, for example. It's been around for years, and there's always a low level of AFM in every state of the U.S. And in other countries, it can be huge. India has 40 to 50,000 cases of AFM a year, and most of them, they don't know what it causes. Now, what's unusual in the last 5 years or so, back in 2014, there was an outbreak of Enterovirus D68 in the United States, and it coincided with an increase in the number of cases of AFM, a spike, not the usual low level across the states, but there was a spike in cases of AFM, and that correlated with Enterovirus D68 outbreak, and a number of those kids who had D68 got paralysis. Next year, no spike in AFM, no spike in Enterovirus 68. 2016, again a spike in AFM correlating with EVD68 infections. And 2017, no spikes of either, and now this year, again we have a spike of AFM, and this year EVD68 is one of the viruses that's being isolated from it. So the CDC will not say that EVD68 is causing the AFM, but it is associated with many of the cases.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was leading up to, because it seems like a lot of the cases they report as being confirmed for AFM doesn't have an etiology.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think only about 50% of them have a D68 isolation, and so the CDC says even the way they look for virus is to do a nasopharyngeal swab, right? They put a swab up your nose, they rub it around, and they look for virus by PCR. The CDC says we want to see the virus in the spinal cord, and it's very rare to see that in these cases. I think there have only been 1 or 2 cases of EVD68 infected kids with virus in the cerebral spinal fluid.
Sure.
I said spinal cord, I meant cerebral spinal fluid.
Right.
So CDC is very circumspect. And other viruses, other enteroviruses are being isolated from some of these kids, like Entero A71 and some others as well. So this year it's funny because, in the previous 2 outbreaks, it looked like most of the kids had EVD68, but now it's different. So it's not clear what's going on. A lot of interesting questions here.
Right, and that really turns me to my next question. Dr. Racaniello, your lab, which was known for decades for polio research, is turning to EVD68. What kind of research are you doing or planning on doing?
So back in 2014, when there was that first spike of AFM associated with EVD68, we said, let's get into this. It looks like the virus might be able to infect nerve cells. We call that being neurotropic.
Right.
So we said, let's see that. And initially we took human neurons in culture and we collected EV68 isolates from 1962 to the present, and we found that all of them could infect neurons. We made astrocytes, human astrocytes. All of them could infect astrocytes. We did the same thing with mouse neurons and mouse astrocytes. So these viruses, since their first isolation back in 62, they're all neurotropic. And so that means whatever's happening isn't anything new as far as we can tell. The other thing we're doing is we want to know where these viruses are replicating in the lung. So we're making 3-dimensional lung cultures from human stem cells. You can actually make little mini lungs that have branched out villi in culture. We can infect them. We can see where the virus is replicating, what kind of immune response it gives, and we'd like to know, again, if all these isolates differ in any way. The other thing we're doing, collaborating with some clinicians, we want to get genome sequences of some of these kids who developed AFM after EVD68 and see if they have any mutations that predispose them to developing this disease. So we're really doing a lot of interesting things on the virus, and for me, it's very exciting because there are a lot of interesting questions. Mm-hmm. The other one, of course, how the virus gets from the lung to the central nervous system. Sure. There's no viremia, so how is that working? And so these are some of the things we're trying to sort out, and we're very excited about this. Now, funding is not, we don't have funding for this, so we're trying to get some. And you may have heard that Senator Gillibrand is trying to get the government to invest $1 billion yes. in AFM research, and hoping that'll go through. There's been a task force convened, and they met in Atlanta. We also are part of a collaborative effort between clinicians and basic scientists, and they met this week for the first time. So we're excited to be part of that and doing things that we hope can advance our understanding of the disease.
Sure, that would be a really important work. And you also have a crowdfunding project for your research. Can you tell the audience a little bit about that?
Right. So as I said, we don't have any financial support for any of this work, and we need to be able to apply to NIH for support. You need to have some results, and so we thought we could use the public to get some money. So Columbia actually had a crowdfunding website built already, and they were very excited to work with us. So we've started to ask individuals who, do you want to give us $25? And we want to raise $15,000. It's not a lot of money, but it's enough to get preliminary data that we could use to apply for funding. And we've had a nice response so far. We've had it out for 6 days. We've raised $1,600, and a lot of the moms of kids who have AFM have responded. Yeah. It's very touching. They want to help out.
Good. Dr. Racaniello, are there any websites, social media, or any other links that you'd like to share with the listener?
So our crowdfunding site, if anyone's interested in helping us out, and there are rewards that you get for helping out. Go to crowdfund.columbia.edu/project/9241. So that's where you can find our crowdfund. We started a new website on enteroviruses, enterovirus.net. We thought that we should start talking about what's going on and the viruses involved and so forth. So if people want to know more, they can go there. And, of course, virology.ws is my 12-year-old blog that teaches you all about viruses.
Yeah. And I'll be sure to post those links on the website when I post the podcast so you guys can check that out. Dr. Racaniello, any final thoughts?
So viruses are always interesting. They always give us something new that we don't expect. So I think, for the ones that we can handle, get vaccinated. For the others, support basic research.
There you go. Well, thank you, Dr. Vincent Racaniello, for your time and your expertise, and good luck on your work.
Thank you, Robert. Good talking again.
All right. You take care.